I, 16-year-old male, have two dads. One died before I was born. Daddy, he was my non-biological father, and his best friend was my parents' surrogate. She's my Aunt Giga. My dad is my biological parent and my daddy's widower. And yeah, I say dad and daddy, and still say daddy as a 16-year-old guy. Dad always referred to daddy as daddy to me, so I use it. A month before I was born, daddy died. My dad changed completely that day. Because of where we live, even back then, my daddy was still able to be recognized on my birth certificate. It was a fight and involved the courts, but it happened. It was really uncommon back then, but he won the case thanks to Aunt Giga and other family members recognizing my two dads. I grew up always knowing about daddy, and I always cherished the connection to him. I was always glad my dad won the right for both of them to be legally my parents. I was also always treated like their son, not just dads or not dads and Aunt Gigas. When I was 4, my dad tried to date again, and he met Sam. They dated for about 3 months, but dad wasn't ready, and Sam didn't like what he saw. He felt jealous and insecure that he wasn't being brought in as another dad for me. They reconnected when I was 8 and got married when I was 12. My relationship with Sam is complicated and weird, and he wants to adopt me. But I don't want him to be my dad. I don't want to be adopted by him or to have him take care of me if I become an orphan. He has always made it a point to bring up the fact that daddy wasn't my biological father in the first place, and how legally it was a miracle he's even on my birth certificate. I hate it. It feels so gross. He has told me at least I'll know him, while daddy is someone who's just saintly in my mind because I wasn't allowed to process only having one parent. Even though I know I was raised by one parent, but I still had two. He just wasn't here. But I read the book he was putting together for me. He documented a lot of the parenting journey and surrogacy stuff and the pregnancy until his death. He was so excited. He loved me so much. He wanted me so badly. On Father's Day, we had a big fight over adoption. Dad was out, and Sam brought up the adoption to me. He told me he's tired of feeling like an outsider because I always treat him like dad's spouse instead of my stepdad or my parent. I told him that's what he is, and he has to learn to accept that. I told him nothing changed for me. He told me it's stupid because I love one stepdad so much more. I told him daddy is more than just a stepdad, and then I told him I don't want him to adopt me ever, and bringing up daddy isn't winning me over. I told him if anything, he's making me wish dad had found someone better. Dad doesn't know what happened, but things have been tense since, and Sam said I went too far. Am I the jerk? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You treat Sam like your dad's spouse because he is. Sam is not entitled to you calling him your parent or for him to adopt you, and I don't understand why he would. Flipping the script, this would more obviously give off really weird stepmom vibes. Not the idiot. I suggest you talk to your dad about what happened because you haven't made it clear in your post, and I wish you all the best. Don't be discouraged, and don't let anyone invalidate how you feel. Comment 2. Not the idiot, but you need to tell your dad what's going on. He should not be in the dark about this. Does your dad want him to adopt you? Or is this just something Sam wants? Sam is a jerk. He is crossing boundaries and is so far out of line. He has no business bringing this up to you or speaking ill of the dead. Please talk to your dad and make sure he knows how uncomfortable Sam makes you. Now for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since the last post. After the big fight on Father's Day, things got even more complicated. The tension between Sam and me was unbearable, and Dad started to notice. He tried to get us to talk it out, but every time we tried, it just ended up in another argument. Sam kept pushing the adoption thing, and I kept pushing back. It was like we were stuck in this endless loop of frustration and anger. One day, about a week after the fight, Sam came home with some papers. He said they were adoption papers and that he wanted me to at least look at them. I refused, of course, but he left them on the kitchen table anyway. Dad saw them and asked what was going on. Sam told him everything, and Dad was furious. He said that Sam had no right to pressure me like that and that he should respect my feelings. Sam stormed out of the house and I could hear him yelling outside. That night, Dad and I had a long talk. He told me that he loved Sam, but that he loved me more. He said he would support whatever decision I made about the adoption. I felt relieved, but I also felt guilty. I didn't want to be the reason for their fights. Dad assured me that it wasn't my fault and that Sam needed to understand that he couldn't force a relationship. A few days later, Sam came back and apologized. He said he realized he was being too pushy and that he would back off. I wanted to believe him, but something in his eyes told me he wasn't done. He was still determined to make me his son, whether I wanted it or not. Then something unexpected happened. Aunt Giga came to visit. She had heard about the fight and wanted to check on us. She brought some old photo albums and letters from Daddy. We spent hours looking through them, and it was like Daddy was there with us. It reminded me of how much he loved me and how much he wanted to be a part of my life, even if he couldn't be there physically. One of the letters stood out to me. It was a letter Daddy wrote to me before he died. In it, he talked about how much he loved me and how he hoped I would always remember him. He also mentioned that he wanted me to be happy and to have a loving family. It made me realize that Daddy wouldn't want me to be unhappy or to be in a constant state of conflict. I decided to give Sam another chance. I told him that I still didn't want to be adopted, but that I was willing to try to build a better relationship with him. He seemed genuinely touched and promised to respect my wishes. For a while, things seemed to be getting better. We started doing more things together, like going to the movies and playing video games. It was nice, but there was always this underlying tension. Then the risk that could make or break everything happened. Sam got a job offer in another city. It was a great opportunity for him, but it meant that we would have to move. Dad was excited about the prospect of a new start, but I was devastated. I didn't want to leave my friends, my school, or the memories of Daddy. I felt like I was being forced to choose between my past and my future. I tried to talk to Dad about it, but he was so caught up in the excitement that he didn't really listen. Sam, on the other hand, saw it as the perfect opportunity to start fresh and build the family he always wanted. He kept saying that it would be good for us and that we could finally put the past behind us. But I didn't want to put the past behind me. I wanted to hold on to it, to remember Daddy and the life we had. The move was set for the end of the month, and as the days went by, I felt more and more trapped. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I was losing everything that mattered to me. The night before the move, I had a breakdown. I told Dad that I couldn't do it, that I didn't want to leave. He tried to comfort me, but I could see the conflict in his eyes. He wanted to support me, but he also wanted to support Sam. The next morning, we packed up the car and started the drive to the new city. I felt numb, like I was in a bad dream. When we arrived, the house was nice, but it didn't feel like home. I missed my old room, my friends, and the memories of Daddy. I felt like a stranger in my own life. The first few weeks were tough. I struggled to adjust to the new school and to make new friends. Sam tried to be supportive, but it felt forced. Dad was busy with work and settling into the new house. I felt more alone than ever. One night, I overheard Sam and Dad talking. Sam was saying that he thought the move was a mistake and that he didn't know how to fix things. Dad was trying to reassure him, but I could hear the doubt in his voice. It made me realize that the move hadn't solved anything. It had only made things worse. I started to withdraw, spending more time in my room and less time with Sam and Dad. I felt like I was losing myself, like I was disappearing. I missed Daddy more than ever, and I felt like I was letting him down by not being happy. One day, I found an old journal that Daddy had kept. In it, he wrote about his hopes and dreams for me. He talked about how much he loved me and how he wanted me to be happy. It made me realize that I needed to find a way to be happy, even if it meant making some tough decisions. I decided to talk to Dad and Sam. I told them how I was feeling and that I needed to find a way to be happy. I told them that I couldn't keep living in the past, but that I also couldn't forget it. I needed to find a balance. Dad and Sam listened, and for the first time, I felt like they really understood. They promised to support me and to help me find a way to be happy. It was a small step, but it was a start. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for cutting off my husband's toxic best friend who tried to sabotage our baby shower plans? Why 22-year-old female and my husband, 23-year-old male, got married young? I was 18 and he was 19. Both of us knew we always wanted to get married and start a family young. I started college 2 years ago, and he just graduated with a Bachelor of Biomedical Science. My husband has a female best friend, 23-year-old female, who I'll call Sam, who he met in college. Both of them grew up Baptist, and while he's left the church, they had a very similar childhood and bonded quite quickly. Despite what you may be thinking, she and I got along really well. She and I liked the same music, and we were both studying in relatively the same fields, so she became a friend of mine as well. Since I found out I was pregnant, though, some issues have started to arise. We announced our pregnancy on social media after we told our parents. Sam texted my husband a congratulations message and then told him to pass on her well wishes to me. She's been texting him nonstop with baby advice and what she likes to call advice for mama, which includes sometimes relatively targeted jabs at what I should eat. Honestly, I kept brushing the texts off, but it got to a point where the conversations were less about the baby and more about me, which I was getting increasingly uncomfortable with because she wasn't texting me, she was texting my husband. My husband acknowledged this and has just started to show them to me and ask what I want him to do. I just told him to ignore them. When I announced I was having a baby shower and sent out the invites, I received a text from Sam. She said something along the lines of wanting to host my baby shower and set it up. I told her politely that my mom was planning on hosting it with the help of my sister and that it was a special moment for them and I wouldn't want to take that away. Well, Sam ignored that message because the next day, she came over and insisted we start working out arrangements for the venue. I told her once again my mom and sister were hosting it, and she told me that I should take her advice and let her plan it because she'd ensure that the baby shower would be better if she planned it, particularly because she'd be working on the menu. Whether it was pregnancy hormones or just bottled up rage, I told her that the jabs she'd been making at me behind my back about my diet during this pregnancy to my husband are really annoying, and that no, she cannot host this shower. And from now on, her unsolicited advice was not appreciated, especially if she can't say it to my face. That night, my husband's phone blew up with messages from Sam saying that he had no right to show me those messages and they were just supposed to be health tips because Sam was studying nutritional science and only wanted to help her best friend and ensure a happy baby in life. I know she had somewhat good intentions and she's been a good friend to my husband and to me. So am I the jerk? Now for an update. Updates and comments. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Ignoring her messages is not the right solution. It's time for your husband to set specific boundaries. Better yet, invite her over together and have the conversation face to face. She is counting on having separate side conversations with your husband, as evidenced by that night my husband's phone blew up with messages. That needs to stop. Sit her down and say, "We are married and there is nothing you can send me that I am going to keep secret from my wife. Please stop sending me messages about my wife. Do you understand?" Comment 2. Not the idiot. Your instincts are right on this one. If the two of you got along so well, why wasn't Sam texting you directly with all her helpful advice? This woman sounds like she is trying to insert herself between you and your husband in a really nasty, manipulative way. I think you need to have a serious discussion with your husband about boundaries. What did husband say after his phone blew up? Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me through all this. So after that blow up with Sam, things got even more complicated. The next day my husband and I had a long talk about boundaries and how we both felt about Sam's behavior. He admitted that he had been feeling uncomfortable too, but didn't know how to address it without causing a rift. We decided that he would have a direct conversation with Sam to set some clear boundaries. When he called Sam, she was initially defensive, saying she was just trying to help. But my husband was firm and told her that while her intentions might have been good, her approach was causing stress and discomfort. He asked her to respect our space and to communicate directly with me if she had any advice or concerns. Sam reluctantly agreed, but I could tell from my husband's expression that the conversation had been tense. The following day, I received a text from Sam. She apologized for overstepping and said she would back off. I appreciated the gesture, but something about the message felt off. It was too formal, almost like she was doing it out of obligation rather than genuine remorse. I decided to let it go for the sake of peace, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end of it. 2 days later, my mom called me, sounding upset. She said she had received an anonymous email criticizing her plans for the baby shower, suggesting that she wasn't considering my health and well-being. The email listed specific dietary recommendations and even suggested alternative venues. My mom was hurt and confused, and I immediately suspected Sam. I didn't have any proof, but the tone and content of the email were eerily similar to her previous messages. I decided to confront Sam directly. I called her and asked if she had sent the email. She denied it, but her voice wavered, and I could tell she was lying. I told her that if she couldn't respect our boundaries, we would have to reconsider our friendship. She got angry and accused me of trying to drive a wedge between her and my husband. I hung up, feeling more frustrated than ever. That night, my husband and I talked again. He was torn because he valued his friendship with Sam, but also understood that her behavior was causing problems. We decided to take a break from her for a while to focus on our relationship and the upcoming baby. The next day, my husband received a call from an old college friend who had heard about the situation. He revealed that Sam had a history of overstepping boundaries in her friendships, especially with male friends. Apparently, she had caused issues in another friend's relationship by inserting herself into their personal matters. This information was eye-opening and made us realize that Sam's behavior was part of a pattern. As we processed this new information, I started to reflect on my own experiences with Sam. I remembered a time when she had insisted on helping me with a college project, only to take over completely and disregard my ideas. At the time, I had brushed it off as her being enthusiastic, but now I saw it in a different light. It was clear that Sam had a need to control situations and be the center of attention. With this new perspective, my husband and I decided to cut ties with Sam completely. We sent her a message explaining that her behavior was causing too much stress and that we needed to focus on our family. She didn't take it well and sent a barrage of angry texts, accusing us of being ungrateful and selfish. We blocked her number and hoped that would be the end of it. However, the fallout didn't stop there. A few days later, my husband received a call from his old church. They had heard about the situation and were concerned about Sam's well-being. It turned out that Sam had been venting to mutual friends, painting herself as the victim. My husband explained our side of the story, and while the church members were sympathetic, they urged us to consider reconciliation. We politely declined, explaining that we needed to prioritize our mental health and the well-being of our baby. In the midst of all this, I started to feel the strain on my own mental health. The stress was affecting my sleep, and I was constantly anxious. My mom and sister noticed and offered to take over more of the baby shower planning to give me a break. Their support was a huge relief, and I started to feel a bit better. As we moved forward, my husband and I focused on strengthening our relationship. We made a point to communicate openly and support each other. We also started attending a couples counseling session to help us navigate the challenges we were facing. It wasn't easy, but we were committed to making it work. Looking back, I realized that Sam's behavior had been a wake-up call. It forced us to reevaluate our boundaries and prioritize our relationship. While it was a painful experience, it ultimately brought us closer together and prepared us for the challenges of parenthood. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for cutting off my best friend after he didn't invite me to his wedding, but expected me to take care of his house? For about 11 years now, I've 37-year-old male, been pretty close with John, 38-year-old male. We met at a job in my mid-20s and were pretty regular company up until the pandemic, where our hanging out, including a circle of mutual friends, has taken a decline but isn't extinct. John and his partner Jane, 36-year-old female, have been together for about 8 years now, engaged for a little under 2 years, both with a child from previous relationships, so they have taken trips with their kids near yearly, and I've been happy to help visit John's, now their home, and check on things, take care of their animals, etc. while they're gone. I've helped them out with other projects tasks over the years, and most recently picked up Jane from the airport returning from a work trip and got her home this past winter during a snowstorm because my vehicle could handle it. Generally, I have been present and helpful on top of our base friendship. About 5 weeks ago, I find out from a mutual friend their wedding is coming up, and invites went out a while ago, everyone in our circle but me invited. As a gay guy, I've experienced being iced out of some of my straight friends' lives and events in ways minor and pronounced. But this one has definitely been something that has had me thinking about my time and energy with people. I decided I would take the hint and begin to distance myself. 3 days ago, John texts me asking if I am around in early to mid-August. I say I am. John asks if I wouldn't mind visiting like I have before to look after the animals and property. I said, sorry, I can't. He calls to talk about it. We run through the same conversation, polite but a bit tense, so I finally say, I just won't be visiting your home. After a moment of silence, I bring up that I'm disappointed that I appear to be the only person in our group of friends not invited to his wedding, and that I can't be helping like I have before if I'm just a background friend at this point. I wrap up the call positively and sincerely with me wishing them a good wedding and trip, and that maybe we can grab drinks soon. Jane reaches out 2 days ago sending follow-up texts, saying John is upset about what I said and with her because she made the final calls about friend invites and that I am taking this the wrong way. There is only so much capacity and that the others in our friend group have partners that took up space. She adds that she hopes I'll change my mind and help them out because it would put John's mind at ease. I'm not entitled to the company of others or invitations to anybody's events, but am I wrong for setting my own boundaries in response to theirs? I try not to frame my friendships as transactional, but they obviously want something out of me here despite their not inviting me and then avoiding even bringing it up with me until they needed help with covering their honeymoon. Now for an update. John and I met up. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the jerk. You're good enough to be their house sitter. But sure, everyone else's +1 took up all the slots. Right. And I have a bridge in Brooklyn for sale. We all know what Jane's issue is, and we know John has zero backbone for going along with it. But don't be surprised if an invite suddenly appears. Oh, look, someone dropped out and we really do want you to come. You're only on our D list. Don't forget the gift. And you can still watch the house now, right? Comment 2. Hi, Jane. You are entitled to invite anyone you want to your wedding. So if +1s rank above me in importance, that is your choice. But I perform favors for people based on our level of friendship, so I will need to decline based on the level of friendship you and John have shown to me. Have a great wedding. Maybe one of your closer friends can take care of this for you. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. John and I met up a couple of weeks ago to talk things through. We decided to meet at our usual spot, a small cafe downtown where we've had countless conversations over the years. I was hoping for some clarity, but things took an unexpected turn. John started by apologizing for not inviting me to the wedding. He said it was a tough decision and that Jane had a lot of family she wanted to include. I could tell he was uncomfortable, but I appreciated the effort. Then John dropped a shocker. He asked if I could reconsider helping out with the house and animals during their honeymoon. He said they were in a bind and didn't have anyone else they trusted as much as me. I was torn. On one hand, I felt hurt and excluded. On the other, I didn't want to let my friend down. I told him I needed some time to think about it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying our conversation in my head. I thought about all the times I'd been there for John and Jane and how they'd excluded me from such an important event. It felt like a slap in the face. But then I thought about John's apology and how he seemed genuinely sorry. I decided to give it another shot and agreed to help them out. The next day, I called John and told him I'd take care of the house and animals while they were away. He sounded relieved and thanked me profusely. I felt a bit better, thinking maybe this was a step towards mending our friendship. But things didn't go as planned. A few days later, I went over to John and Jane's place to go over the details. Jane was there and she seemed distant. We went through the usual stuff, feeding the animals, watering the plants, checking the mail. But there was an awkward tension in the air. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. As I was leaving, Jane pulled me aside. She said she appreciated my help, but wanted to make sure I understood that their wedding was a small, intimate affair. She reiterated that space was limited and that it wasn't personal. I nodded, but inside I felt a mix of anger and sadness. It felt like she was trying to justify their decision, but it only made me feel worse. The day of the wedding came and I tried to keep myself busy. I went to their house, took care of the animals, and made sure everything was in order. but I couldn't stop thinking about the wedding and how I wasn't there. It hurt more than I expected. A week into their honeymoon, I got a call from John. He sounded panicked. He said there was a problem with the house, a pipe had burst, and there was water everywhere. I rushed over and found the basement flooded. I called a plumber and started moving things out of the water. It was a mess. The plumber arrived and said it would take a few days to fix everything. I called John back and told him the situation. He was stressed, but thanked me for handling it. I spent the next few days dealing with the mess, coordinating with the plumber, and making sure the animals were okay. It was exhausting. When John and Jane returned, they were grateful for my help, but the whole experience left a bitter taste in my mouth. I felt like I'd gone above and beyond for them, yet I was still the outsider. I decided it was time to take a step back and focus on myself. In the days that followed, I started to distance myself from John and Jane. I didn't ignore them, but I stopped going out of my way to help. I needed to protect my own feelings and set some boundaries. It wasn't easy, but it felt necessary. Looking back, I realized that my friendship with John had changed. We weren't the same people we were when we first met. Life had taken us in different directions, and that was okay. But it was time for me to prioritize my own well-being. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.